Right, hey everyone, Hugo here. Today I'm going to show you the MetaEngine, which is probably the biggest update we've ever released, but also the most powerful. So at a very high level, the MetaEngine is a way for you to define a matrix of inputs. And what this means is that where before to define a connection or like a task, you would have had to have, done 18 lines of code. Now you can spawn literally infinitum tasks based on just a very, very simple matrix. So here you can see we've used this matrix syntax to generate 4 inputs, and then we're passing these in as environment variables into the code. So I'm in a new branch here. I'm going to go ahead and publish that branch, and I'm going to save this file, and then I'm going to whiz through this PR and then show you what it looks like on the other side. Right, so we can see we actually, on the surface, have a pretty simple DAG here. There's a Python task that's running a Python command. It's not a big deal. It's just a piece of code that fetches some data from an SFTP server. We can see that code here. But what we've done is we've made that code very, very modularizable. We've used environment variables in this code that means that we can parameterize the file path. So as long as the SFTP server or whatever endpoint or data source you have is, relatively consistent, all you have to do is pass an array of things to instantly parallelize all of those tasks. So you can see in Orchestra we have this nice little syntax. If you're editing in the UI, you can just copy this and you'll get it. And you'll see that we know this is a matrix task because we have these cascading windows behind. We can take a look here at the matrix configuration that we've defined, which is pretty cool. And then we can actually see that as we're moving this data from the SFTP server to S3, we're then going to load it from S3 into Snowflake, and then we're going to do some cool DBT stuff. And again, it's pretty cool because we have a parameterized list for the task names, which are going to execute the snowpipe. But again, this is just a dummy example, but you could pass this in to a parameterizable Snowflake task or Snowflake query, which means you can then parallelize, the loading of all of those bits of data from S3 into Snowflake. And then finally, you can even pass that list into a DBT macro. So a common thing that folks have asked for is that they get a bit sick when they have 100 separate SQL files in DBT, one for each model, when the business logic of the model is actually exactly the same. What they would prefer to do is run a macro with, the list of all of the tables, and then that macro generates every single SQL file as DBT core is running. You can do that with Orchestra, and then we'll basically generate those SQL files in the serverless container that runs DBT core on the fly, and then you can run DBT build. So yeah, super, super, super powerful feature. And yeah, if we run this, I can show you what happens. All right, so this is the MetaEngine that I showed you earlier. And we can see here that we've got the name of the matrix tasks populated into the task name, so you can see which one it is. And crucially, if you look at the environment variables JSON, we'll see that only one value from the matrix has been propagated by the MetaEngine. We can also see some pretty cool stuff in that every single subtask can set outputs. And these outputs can be things like, the path that like a file gets written to, or some sort of like, object specific key that you need to propagate forward. If we then take a look at the downstream Snowflake tasks, again, like you can see, we've managed to successfully propagate that data from the MetaEngine, and it's allowed us to load data from S3 to Snowflake really easily. And then, of course, we have our DBT model, which is running afterwards. So yeah, like that's a quick summary of the MetaEngine. It is extremely powerful. It's worth noting that we also support things like lists of arrays. So if you need to do things like go two-dimensional, that's possible too. But the real value in this comes from the combination of of UI and then also this matrix syntax, where other frameworks would require you to basically run scripts to generate scripts. Orchestra handles all of this automatically. You don't even need to put in like a for each operator, which you would have to do in things like Databricks workflows or Azure Data Factory. Literally, as long as you've got this matrix syntax, Orchestra will just pick up the fact that you're going to build something incredibly dynamic. And yeah, just imagine you've got new data, right? Like all you have to do is that. We've got infinitive tasks. So we're very, very excited. This week, we're going to be putting out a lot of videos about how you can essentially use this pattern on Databricks, on Data Factory, on Snowflake, and even to apply it for things like data quality. So yeah, please subscribe to the YouTube, and we will see you soon.